Welcome to Joy Recovery Radio, the place where couples like you can discover healing and hope after sexual infidelity and betrayal trauma. We're here to share insights, strategies, and real-life stories that support both sides of the recovery journey. We're passionate about getting this message of hope and healing to as many couples as possible. The best way you can help us do that is by engaging with our podcast. Please take a moment to follow us on Apple Podcasts and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Liking our episodes and leaving a 5-star review also makes a huge difference, helping others find our community when they need it most. Let's dive into today's episode.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Joy Recovery Radio. Today, we're going to be talking about why men struggle to become emotionally attuned and what could be done about it. So it could be said that we addicts, once we started our addictive behavior, we stopped developing emotionally. And the reason that is true so often is because our acting out was a way of, quote, regulating our emotions. It was not a healthy way of emotional regulation, but it was the way that we learned and repeated over time. So in a very real way, acting out was a way to escape an unpleasant present reality, especially if it was uncomfortable or unpleasant emotions that we did not want to experience. We would numb, escape, medicate, and suppress by acting out. Therefore, we did not learn how to develop emotionally as a result. Most addicts do not have very high emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, which is sometimes called EQ in the literature, is referring to one's ability to recognize their emotions, understand their emotions, accurately label their emotions, express their emotions in healthy ways, and regulate their emotions. Notice it spells the word ruler, which makes it easy to remember the 5 elements of emotional intelligence. And once you become skilled at doing that for yourself, which is self-awareness and self-regulation, now you become more adept at applying these skills in your relationships. That is, you become more socially aware and more able to co-regulate in your relationships. This can be especially important with our relationship with our partner who is going through betrayal trauma and a lot of dysregulation. The more skilled we become at becoming attuned to our own emotions, we can become more attuned to their emotions. We can be more empathic. We can learn to recognize their emotions, understand their emotions, accurately label their emotions, help them to express their emotions in healthy, productive ways, and co-regulate their emotions. The good news about EQ is that unlike IQ, it can be developed. It is not static or fixed. When it comes to IQ, that is pretty much set. And no matter how hard you try to increase your IQ, it's not going to change beyond one standard deviation, typically. But when it comes to EQ, with both practice and intentionality, emotional intelligence can be highly developed. And that is good news for us, as many of us are stunted emotionally. Today, we're going to talk about 5 reasons why men are typically not connected to their emotions and 5 things that can be done about it. Let's begin with the why. Number 1, we men typically had no models growing up. We weren't shown how to feel or express emotions in a healthy way from another man in our life. Most of our fathers, our uncles, our teachers, our coaches, and other mentors and models in our life typically stuffed and suppressed their feelings. So, through social learning, we followed their example. However, when men are given safety, when they are given permission, and when they are given guidance on how to feel and how to express their emotions, they are often able to do it very quickly and quite powerfully. So, this is a skill that can be taught. It can be practiced, and it can even be mastered by men. That's the good news. Second reason that we often see men not emotionally attuned is because of what we call the man box. The man box is a reference to the collective socialization of masculinity. That is, we men from early on receive messages from family, friends, media, culture, basically coming to us from all angles, describing what a quote, real man is. If you want more information on the man box, there is an outstanding TED Talk from Tony Porter. If you just look it up, you'll see him describe in more detail the man box. But let me give you some of the tenets of the man box, and I bet that you can recognize this. The man box is basically a box that we put boys in, and we tell them, you are not to go outside of this box. And when they reach a certain age, we begin to tell them things like this. You do not cry openly. You don't express emotion except for anger. Anger is the one exception. Anger is totally okay for men to express. You do not express weakness or fear. You always demonstrate power and control, especially over women. We tell the boys, you need to understand that aggression is being dominant, and you want to be dominant. You do not make mistakes, and if you make mistakes, you don't admit them. You do not act like a girl. This is a capital offense for a man. Or even worse, act like you're gay. Real men are tough, they are athletic, they are strong, and they are fearless. They have total courage. Real men should be decisive, and they don't ask for help, they don't offer help, and they don't accept help from others. A real man would never turn down sex. And real men view women as objects. They are the property of men, and they have less value than men. Now, if you take a look at these points that make up the man box, you'll be able to see that these are strong messages. And over time, this shapes how we view and express our masculinity. So it's no wonder that we men, whether we're addicts or not, typically have a hard time identifying emotions, getting in touch with emotions, and expressing emotions, because it violates the man box. The man box ends up giving men what's called a man card. And the man card is simply the man code. It is proof that you are a real man. And if you violate one of these principles of the man box, then you're basically, quote, turning in your man card. You are showing your real colors. You're demonstrating that you're not a real man. The third reason that we men often struggle with emotional intelligence is transference. And what I mean by transference is we men have a tendency to transfer our feelings into some safe, acceptable space. For many men, this is sports. When it comes to sports, many of us end up expressing a wide range of emotions because it is an acceptable place to do it. You don't have to turn in your man card if you express emotions around competition and sports. Whether you are playing the sport, participating in the sport, or you're a spectator in the sport, real men are allowed to show emotions in that arena. And so we end up expressing sadness, profound sadness, maybe even vulnerable enough to cry if we lose, or extreme joy and exhilaration if we win or if we get that touchdown. And then often you'll see great affection among teammates or between fans, giving each other a high five, giving each other a bro hug and things like that. And many men struggle with depression after they stop playing sports because now they have no place to feel. They haven't seen emotions expressed outside of this environment, and now they don't know what to do with their emotions. I'll never forget when I was going to college at Texas Tech University. We had a tradition that there was this masked rider that would ride the horse, our mascot, completely down the length of the football field after every touchdown that we would score. And I remember attending this game, and to my right was a man, a stranger. I did not know this man, but there was a terrible accident that happened during the game. After Tech scored one of their touchdowns, the masked rider got on the horse and ran down the sideline the length of the football field. But right before the horse started their sprint, the masked rider fell off. And the horse knew the routine and started to run by itself down the length of the field, and usually is supposed to start slowing down around the 20-yard line. But the horse didn't slow down in time, tripped, slipped, skid, and hit the concrete embankment at the end of the football field. Did a couple of spasms and was clearly dead. Right there in front of 60,000 fans. Our horse died. And I remember the shock, the awe, and we could not believe what we just witnessed. And the stranger, the guy next to me, he put his arm around me and he's like, "Oh, no, no, no." And he began to cry, and he began to cry on my shoulder. Now, in any other context, he would have to turn in his man card. You don't do that. If we're in an elevator, if we're in the grocery store, if we're in any other environment, you don't put your arm around another guy, openly cry on their shoulder. But in a sporting environment, perfectly legit. He still kept his man card. That's transference. That's specific environments where we allow ourselves to open up and show emotions. A fourth reason that we sometimes struggle with emotional attunement is we feel like we're in a double bind, a catch-22, a lose-lose scenario. Because here's the tension that we feel. On one hand, the man box tells us that we are not to express emotions, that is a feminine quality, and we'd have to turn in our man card if we do that. On the other hand, we're now in a relationship with a partner who desires for us to open up and have emotional intimacy with them. And the result is there is this tension, there is this confusion, there is this pressure. We begin to feel incompetent. We begin to feel like we're being controlled. It increases the frustration in our life. And oftentimes we men end up avoiding any environment or any situation that might expect us to share our feelings. In fact, we may even dig our heels in and refuse to open up with our partners because we feel like we're in a double bind situation. The fifth and final reason that we're going to talk about today for why men may struggle with emotional intelligence is we're afraid of losing control. Any kind of unplanned, unexpected emotion can prove to be very overwhelming for us because we subscribe to this false belief. If the, quote, cat ever jumps out of the bag, I'll never be able to get it back in the bag. That is, if I allow myself to express emotions, I may lose control and I may not be able to regain control. The solution of this is we need to take the risk to share our emotions with safe, trustworthy people so that the fear in our head begins to shrink. And what happens is when we open up and we share our emotions and we're vulnerable, and when we receive acceptance for what is inside of us, as well as a deeper connection with others in a psychologically safe environment, we carve a new truth. We create a new neural pathway. We begin to loosen the grip of that false belief on us.
At joy-recovery.com, we offer personalized recovery coaching to help you move from pain to purpose. We also provide supportive groups where you can connect with others who truly understand. So, whether you're battling addiction, healing from betrayal, or rebuilding a brand new relationship, you're not alone. We can help. Go to joy-recovery.com today.
Those are the 5 reasons that men struggle emotionally. Let's look at 5 things that we can do about it. What can be done? Number 1, I think it's important right from the beginning for we men to understand that we are more emotionally aware and we are just basically more emotional than we probably think we are. We need to reframe some of these bleak views of what it means to be a man. You are an emotional creature. You do have emotions. You were created with that capacity. The obstacle to your emotions may be the false belief that you're not emotional. Most men often see themselves as simply one-dimensional, that they are rational, logical problem solvers, and I don't need emotions, and they get in the way. The fact is, you are highly emotional, and this false belief is sometimes based on the assumption of what being emotional looks like or what it feels like. Being emotional doesn't necessarily mean that you have overwhelming emotions that control you or take away your agency. Being emotional doesn't necessarily mean uncontrollably crying. The fact is, men, we are not lacking emotions. We are lacking practice, connecting with them and expressing them. But this lack of practice doesn't mean that they aren't there. It just means that we're not in tune with them. Research strongly suggests that the ability to label and express a wide variety of emotions, called emotional diversity or emo diversity. This ability to label and express a wide variety of emotions contributes positively to both physical and mental health later in life. So number 1, understand you're more emotional than you think, and you're more aware of your emotions than you think you are. Number 2, we're going to have to be more mindful of distractions, of busyness, and boredom in our life. Here's what I mean by that. If we take a moment to get rid of some of the distractions in our life, initially, it's going to lead to boredom. And we men, especially we addicts, we don't know how to sit with our emotions. We don't allow ourselves to. And so we used to act out to avoid emotions. Now we act in. We avoid people. We don't open up, and we disassociate with busyness. So if you begin to get rid of some of the busyness and some of the distractions and actually intentionally have some solitude and silence in your life, initially, yes, that will lead to boredom. But after boredom, emotions begin to surface, as well as thoughts and impressions. Thoughts about yourself, thoughts about your day, thoughts about the people in your life, and even bigger thoughts and impressions like purpose and life satisfaction. When you begin to track and communicate these feelings, it can create new forms of intimacy with yourself and with others. What most of our partners desire more than anything else is emotional intimacy with us. But you're not able to provide that for her until you become more attuned to your emotions. And if you continue to stay super busy and disassociate, you're not going to be able to connect to your emotions. It's going to require carving out some time, some intentionality, and some practice. A third thing you can do is to practice specifically labeling your emotions. You've probably heard the adage that naming is taming. There is a lot of power in accurately identifying what am I feeling in this given moment. Most men are emotionally illiterate. That is, they're not aware of their emotions and they're not able to name accurately their emotions. I know before recovery, I would have told you that I had maybe up to 3 or 4 emotions, that I was either bored or I was angry or I was happy or I was blah. And that was about it. A couple of tools that you can use to get more skilled at labeling your emotions is, number one, an emotion wheel. And if you just do a Google search, you'll find about 20,000 emotion wheels online, but they are able to refine and look into what are the more deeper levels and nuances of what I'm feeling. It may start with anger, but then it begins to branch out into, am I really feeling irritated? Or am I feeling guilty? Or am I feeling jealous? Or am I feeling frustrated? And you begin to expand your emotional vocabulary. Another tool that I highly recommend is an app called What We Feel. This provides a very easy way to check in throughout the day with your emotions, and in an interactive way, you can select what emotion am I feeling in this given moment. And it provides a very basic definition of a wide range of emotions. But whatever tool you use, you need to get your reps in. You need to practice daily, accurately identifying and labeling your emotions. Number 4, lower your shield. What I mean by that, a shield emotion is a defense mechanism. It's an emotion that we use to protect us from emotions that are more vulnerable or painful or scary. One of the most common shield emotions that a man will use is anger. Anger can feel like a very empowering emotion because when you're furious, no one will mess with you because they're afraid of you. And so you can control them. We use aggression to control, especially our partners. So anger is often a shield emotion so that we don't have to deal with more scary or vulnerable or painful emotions that are underneath the anger. There are emotions underneath our shield emotions, and we can't really get attuned to them until we drop our shield and become vulnerable. Number 5, I encourage you as men to get in touch with what I call the Big Five. The Big Five are 5 emotions that we men are most likely to avoid or suppress or numb. Here's the Big Five: sadness, shame, fear, insecurity, and anxiety. There's something about the man box that is especially avoidant of these 5. We have this thought that if we go into these 5 emotions, we are, quote, feminine. We'd have to turn in our man card. Real men don't show sadness. They don't have time for shame. They certainly don't show fear. Real men are proud. They're never insecure. And we don't let others see us worry. In fact, research has shown that boys typically grow up with a narrower range of emotions than girls. And anger is often emphasized in boys, even groomed. And more vulnerable emotions are discouraged and repressed. So we are socializing our boys to have a more narrow range of acceptable emotions as they become men. So let me give a strong word of encouragement to betrayed partners out there. When it comes to your partner, if he begins to take the courageous step to identify his emotions, express them, and open up to you about them, and even to begin to express the Big Five: sadness, shame, fear, insecurity, anxiety. The last thing you want to do, though you may feel the desire to do it, is to rescue him from these uncomfortable emotions. They may make you uncomfortable as well. But you really got to resist the urge to say things like, everything's going to be okay. Or to make a joke because of your discomfort, to try and escape from the discomfort. Or to use logic to explain why he shouldn't feel that way. And not only is this true for betrayed partners of men and addicts, but it's true for us men as we relate to each other. If we have a brother who begins to show one of the big five, who begins to just become vulnerable, we just need to sit with them in the discomfort of their emotion. And it's not helpful to say things like, I understand what you're going through, because you probably don't. And that can be very invalidating. Instead, you want to sit with them and you want to say, I hear you, bro. That really sucks. Or, I wish I could take this away for you, but I'm going to sit with you in this. You validate them. You support them. The main reason that we're not in touch with these emotions is because we were taught early on by many, 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 many messages from multiple sources in all directions that we needed to, quote, be a man, hold it in, be strong, don't let them see you cry, you're acting like a girl, or you're acting gay. So being able to handle his vulnerability with safety and support is one of the most healing, one of the most helpful, one of the most corrective things that you could possibly do for him. So don't try to solve his emotions. Don't try to take them away. Don't try to respond with logic. Just be present and listen to him. So we've looked at 5 reasons that men struggle with emotional intelligence, and we've looked at 5 different tactics that we could use to mitigate that. But this is not just about feeling more emotions. It's about building stronger, deeper connections with your partner and living a more fulfilling, healthy life. Imagine being able to navigate challenging conversations with your partner with ease. Imagine being able to truly understand what you're feeling in a given moment and why you're feeling it, and to have the skills to communicate that openly and honestly with the person you love. That's what emotional intelligence can do for you. So if you're ready to move beyond just understanding these concepts that we've talked about today and truly put them into practice, I invite you to take the next step. This journey of emotional growth can be challenging, but you don't have to go through it alone. As a recovery coach for men, I provide a safe and supportive space to explore this in depth. I work with many men, just like you, to help you build the confidence and the competence that you need to show up authentically in your relationships. If you're serious about transforming your emotional life and strengthening your relationship, I encourage you to book a free, no-obligation discovery coaching call with me. And we'll chat about where you are now, where you want to be, and how coaching can help you get there. This is your opportunity to invest in yourself and in the quality of your relationship and your future. You've taken the first step by listening to this episode. Now, let's take the next one together.
That wraps up another episode of Joy Recovery Radio. We hope our conversation today brought you clarity, comfort, or a new perspective on your journey. Remember, healing is possible, and you don't have to walk this path alone. To learn more about how we can support you, visit us at joy-recovery.com. There, you'll find information about our individual and couples coaching practice designed to provide tailored support for both addicts and betrayed partners. You can also explore our various online groups, offering safe and confidential spaces for connection, shared experience, and growth. Thank you for joining us today. Until next time, choose joy.